I get paid no matter how much time you spend in jail.
Yes, sir. I know you do, sir.
Colonel Jessup said he ordered the code red. What did we do wrong?
You think you know A Few Good Men. You quote, "You can't handle the truth like gospel." But what if I told you that line was almost cut? That Cruise used gag reels to break the tension, and that the courtroom's most iconic flourish was pure improvisation. Step behind the courtroom doors, past the stiff uniforms and courtroom dramatics, and you'll find a very different story. One packed with freak accidents, casting chaos, and moments of unexpected comedy. Let's peel back the polished brass of this military drama and reveal 12 weird truths you weren't supposed to know. Here are 12 mind-blowing facts you didn't know about A Few Good Men. And if you crave more behind-the-scenes secrets, unexpected casting twists, and lines that rewrote film history, hit subscribe. We've got the truth, and yes, you can handle it. 1. It started as a napkin, scribble from a real-life scandal. Aaron Sorkin wasn't dreaming of Hollywood when he wrote A Few Good Men. He was bartending in Broadway's Palace Theater and scribbled the first scenes on cocktail napkins. The plot came from a real incident. His sister, a Navy JAG lawyer, told him about 2 Marines at Guantanamo accused of hazing a fellow Marine to death. That real-life case sparked the fictional Code Red trial. Sorkin wrote the play in bursts, hunched over his Mac SE, and punching dialogue like a courtroom boxer. What began as an offhand anecdote became a hit Broadway play, then a script rewritten daily on set. No one thought it'd work until it did. 2. Val Kilmer nearly played Kaffee, and Tom Cruise was a backup. Before Tom Cruise took the role of hotshot Navy lawyer Daniel Kaffee, the part almost went to Val Kilmer. Riding high off Top Gun, Kilmer was the top choice, but bailed for Tombstone. Studio heads panicked. Cruise, fresh off Days of Thunder, stepped in. At the time, he wasn't seen as serious courtroom material, but Reiner wanted Cruise's cocky charm. It fit Kaffee's evolution from slacker to principled fighter. Kilmer's loss became Cruise's defining courtroom role and helped Cruise shed his pretty boy image. It's wild to think the guy yelling, "You can't handle the truth," could have had a southern drawl and cowboy boots. 3. Demi Moore's character was originally a man in Sorkin's original play. Lieutenant Commander Joanne Galloway was actually John Galloway. The studio pushed for a female lead to balance the testosterone-heavy cast. Demi Moore, then better known for roles in Ghost and St. Elmo's Fire, was cast, making her one of the highest-paid actresses at the time. Some producers were skeptical about a woman playing a Navy lawyer going head-to-head with Jack Nicholson, but Moore leaned into the role with sharp professionalism, even joining legal advisors during prep. Her character's gender wasn't changed in the script, and Sorkin refused to rewrite any of her lines. The result? A rare non-romantic male-female dynamic that's still ahead of its time. 4. Tom Cruise used gag reels to break the courtroom tension. You don't think of A Few Good Men as funny until you hear how Cruise spent down hours on set. Tension ran high during the courtroom scenes, so Cruise brought levity by filming gag reels with cast and crew. He mimicked Nicholson's voice, cracked jokes during line rehearsals, and even did a mock trial where everyone played each other's roles. Rob Reiner encouraged the chaos. It helped break the intense rhythm of 12-hour courtroom shoot days. The outtakes, rarely seen, became legend among the crew. According to Kevin Pollak, Tom made that courtroom feel like Saturday Night Live. No small feat in a film about death, loyalty, and legal warfare. 5. Jack Nicholson worked for 10 days and got $5 million. You probably remember Jack Nicholson's Colonel Jessup more than anyone. But here's the twist. Nicholson only worked 10 days and got paid $5 million, roughly half the entire cast's salary combined. He was 55, at the peak of his powers, and didn't rehearse much. He knew the lines cold. He performed the legendary "You Can't Handle the Truth" speech multiple times for Cruise's coverage, for Moore's, and finally for his own. And each time, he nailed it with surgical precision. Rob Reiner said watching him was like witnessing a volcano controlled by remote. 10 days, one speech, a whole legacy cemented. 6. The iconic line, improvised in delivery, not script. "You can't handle the truth" wasn't a fluke, but Jack Nicholson gave it the voltage. Aaron Sorkin wrote it exactly that way. No rewrites, no alternate phrasing, but Nicholson's volcanic delivery was nowhere in the stage play. In rehearsal, he said it calmly, but when cameras rolled, he erupted. The courtroom crew audibly gasped. Nicholson wasn't just acting, he detonated. That tone set the bar for how actors punch through silence with rage. Even Reiner said, "The room changed, Cruise's stunned reaction. Real." and that iconic boom became one of the most quoted lines in film history. But here's the kicker: in nearly every take, Nicholson delivered it differently. The editors chose the one that slapped the hardest. 7. Guantanamo was recreated in California. Despite the story's Cuban military base setting, the film never set foot in Guantanamo Bay. The real Gitmo was off limits, so the production recreated it entirely at a California military base and a Mexican coastline. Even the infamous Code Red barracks scene was built from scratch. The searing heat, faked with lights and mist. Military advisors helped dress the set down to the last gravel stone. Ironically, most of the Guantanamo extras were off-duty American soldiers. Some had no idea what the script was really about. To them, it was just another Hollywood courtroom flick, until they saw Nicholson bark across the courtroom floor. 8. Aaron Sorkin got kicked off set. Sort of Aaron Sorkin wrote the script, but during filming, he was sometimes banned from set. Why? He kept arguing with Rob Reiner about line deliveries. Sorkin, a stickler for rhythm and dialogue structure, didn't like actors feeling their way through scenes. Reiner told him, "You're too close." At one point, Sorkin stormed off, only to return the next day, quieter, humbled, but still obsessively rewriting. He even gave himself a cameo. He's the man ordering a cocktail at the bar while Caffey and Galloway talk. That blink and miss it shot was his truce offering, a peace treaty from the man whose script everyone was tampering with. 9. The real Marines were furious. After release, A Few Good Men sparked outrage in the military. Some Marines claimed the film misrepresented their code of honor. One Navy officer said, "We don't kill our own." The Pentagon initially cooperated, offering consultation and base access, but pulled out when they saw the final script. That's why most of the base scenes are composites, not shot with actual Marine involvement. Reiner defended the film, saying it wasn't about the military, but about the individuals who abuse power. Still, to this day, you'll find message boards of ex-Marines debating whether a real Code Red could happen and whether they'd have followed Jessup or fought him. 10. The cast had to learn to march from real Marines. Tom Cruise, Demi Moore, and Kevin Pollak didn't just walk into their uniforms. The actors trained with former Marine consultants who drilled them in salutes, posture, marching, and courtroom conduct. Cruise was so obsessed with authenticity, he stayed in character between takes, addressing fellow actors as "sir" and refusing to break military posture. Demi Moore reportedly asked a drill sergeant, "Do I really have to walk like I've swallowed a broomstick?" The answer was yes. Even the way she held her files had to be adjusted. By the time they filmed, the cast looked like they belonged in the Pentagon, not Hollywood. 11. Rob Reiner's last serious film, sort of. Reiner, known for The Princess Bride and When Harry Met Sally, took a sharp left turn with A Few Good Men. It was his last major dramatic success before shifting toward comedies and lighter dramas. Critics were stunned that the same guy who directed Spinal Tap could deliver such gravity. Behind the scenes, Reiner was meticulous. He storyboarded every line of dialogue and demanded tight pacing, hence the film's relentless rhythm. After this, Reiner would direct films like The American President and Rumor Has It, but A Few Good Men remains his magnum opus of moral tension. And yes, it earned 4 Oscar nominations. No statue, but a courtroom classic was born. 12. The courtroom was built to echo on purpose. The final showdown between Caffey and Jessup, shot in a massive soundstage replica of a courtroom, built with acoustic trickery. Set designers intentionally constructed the room to echo, making every footstep and shout linger. Reiner wanted the courtroom to feel like a cathedral of judgment, where voices carried like sermons. The clangs, the silence, the creak of leather, it all built pressure. Even the witness stand was elevated to subtly position Jessup as a god figure above Cruise. This wasn't just a set, it was a sound weapon. When Jessup loses it, the room doesn't just hear it. You feel it bouncing off every wall like a confession. So maybe you thought A Few Good Men was just another courtroom drama, but now you know. This was warfare in words, sabotage in script notes, and cinema fueled by real fury and real fears. From napkin scribbles to military outrage, from $5 million monologues to echo chambers built for tension, this film was never just a movie, it was a trial of what happens when obedience meets morality. And when actors dig so deep, they come out as legends.
Detroit, St. Louis. Expressway. Yes? I saw an Avondale milk truck. Is that right?
You don't expect a quiet film about an old lady and her chauffeur to start a war. But But Driving Miss Daisy did, not with tanks or bombs, but with Oscars, backlash, and a very polite kind of chaos. The kind only Hollywood can generate when a genteel Southern story steals the top prize from Spike Lee's Molotov cocktail of a movie, Do the Right Thing. The year was 1989. America was boiling, and somehow, this modest little film about race, class, and aging, told through the lens of a single friendship, drove right into the cultural crossfire. Today, we're digging into the strange, bittersweet, and sometimes infuriating behind-the-scenes truths that made Driving Miss Daisy one of the most paradoxical Best Picture winners of all time. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe for more offbeat film deep dives just like this one. We drop new cinematic oddities every week. Always weird, always unforgettable. Let's ride. Here are 14 mind-blowing facts about Driving Miss Daisy you didn't know. 1. The original Miss Daisy was a one-woman stage show and a secret memoir. Before Jessica Tandy ever stepped into those orthopedic shoes, Daisy Wortham lived in a minimalist world. A single set, a chair, and Alfred Urry's pen. Urry, the screenwriter, first wrote Driving Miss Daisy as a one-act play for his friend Dana Ivey. It premiered off-Broadway in 1987 with just 3 actors and became an unlikely hit. But here's the twist. Urry wasn't writing fiction. He was chronicling his own grandmother. The real Miss Daisy was a Jewish woman from Atlanta named Lena Fox, who reluctantly relied on her black chauffeur, Will Coleman, for over 2 decades. The dynamic was real, the tensions were real, and the gentleness too. Urry once admitted he wrote the play out of guilt for not paying attention to his grandmother until she was gone. That sense of quiet regret hangs over every frame of the film. 2. Morgan Freeman was Daisy's driver, years before he was cast in the movie. By the time Driving Miss Daisy hit theaters, Morgan Freeman was a recognizable name, but mostly from the stage. And this was no fluke. Freeman originated the role of Hoke Colburn in the original off-Broadway run. He played it with warmth, wit, and a subtle dignity that floored audiences. But when it came time to make the movie, Freeman nearly lost the part to, you guessed it, an actual movie star. Producer Richard Zanuck reportedly considered casting Sidney Poitier or Danny Glover, but Freeman had something even better than box office numbers: receipts. He had already driven Miss Daisy night after night in 100 darkened theaters, and director Bruce Beresford knew it. Freeman stayed. His performance wasn't just believable, it was lived in. When he says, "I'm trying to drive you to the store," it's not acting, it's muscle memory. 3. Jessica Tandy was 80 years old and she schooled everyone. Jessica Tandy wasn't the studio's first choice for Miss Daisy. She wasn't even their second. Producers flirted with Katharine Hepburn and Bette Davis, both legends, both intimidating, but they either declined or came with too much baggage. Tandy, by contrast, was all professionalism and precision. She had a long Broadway resume, but to most moviegoers, she was a relative unknown until she wasn't. Tandy's performance is a masterclass in restraint, stubborn, proud, quietly terrified of irrelevance. It won her the Oscar for Best Actress. At 80 years old, she became the oldest winner in the category, a record she held until 2023, and she didn't gloat. When asked how she felt about winning, Tandy replied, "Very surprised, very grateful, and a little worried that it's all downhill from here." Spoiler, it wasn't. The director wasn't even nominated for Best Director. Driving Miss Daisy won Best Picture in 1990, and yet its director, Bruce Beresford, didn't even get a nomination. It's one of only a handful of times in Oscar history where the film won the top prize without its director being acknowledged. The snub was so loud, it became part of the movie's legacy. Beresford himself took it in stride. When asked, he said, "I didn't think it was a particularly well-directed film either, but let's be real, that's deflection." What Beresford pulled off, balancing decades of racial and social change in a 99-minute film without ever slipping into melodrama, is no small feat. The fact that he did it without showy camera work or grandstanding only makes the oversight sting more. 5. It was the first PG-rated Best Picture winner in over a decade. Let's talk about tone. Driving Miss Daisy isn't violent. It doesn't scream. There are no war scenes, no drug overdoses, no impassioned courtroom speeches, and that's part of its weird power. In 1989, Hollywood was favoring louder stories. Think Platoon, Rain Man, The Last Emperor. Then came this quiet, dialogue-driven film about a relationship. Its PG rating was almost anachronistic. At a time when serious films had to be gritty or controversial, Driving Miss Daisy whispered its way to the top and won. The next PG-rated Best Picture wouldn't come until The Artist in 2012. But in 1989, Daisy stood alone, polite, understated, and deadly effective. 6. Spike Lee was furious, and history took his side. 1989 should have been Spike Lee's year. Do the Right Thing was raw, electric, and unflinching. A racial powder keg dropped into the middle of a hot Brooklyn summer. Critics called it urgent, revolutionary, a cinematic punch to the gut. It got 1 Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay. Driving Miss Daisy got 9 and won 4, including Best Picture. Spike Lee didn't hold back. He famously quipped, "Driving Miss Daisy and Do the Right Thing. They're both about race. One makes people feel good, the other makes people feel uncomfortable." In 2019, Lee got his revenge when Black Klansman won Best Adapted Screenplay. He literally turned his back when Green Book, another polite race movie, won Best Picture. History, meanwhile, has been kinder to Lee's fire than to Daisy's softness. But the wound remains, and it says a lot that when people talk about 1989 cinema today, they're still arguing. 7. Dan Aykroyd was Oscar nominated. No, really, yes, that Dan Aykroyd, Ghostbusters Dan, Blues Brothers Dan, the guy with the proton pack, somehow slipped into Driving Miss Daisy as Booley Hurthen, Daisy's pragmatic, people-pleasing son, and he didn't play it for laughs. Aykroyd gave a grounded, understated performance that earned him a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. It was the first and only Oscar nod of his career. He lost to Denzel Washington in Glory, a performance few would dare to argue against. But Aykroyd's nomination remains one of the Academy's strangest curveballs. The man who once played an alien disguised as a cone-headed dad was now an Oscar nominee. And somehow, it worked. He never hams it up. He never overreaches. He's just there, the exhausted middleman, caught between his mother's crusty pride and the changing South, and that's what the role needed. 8. Miss Daisy's house was a real Atlanta mansion with a price tag to match. The elegant, ivy-covered home where Daisy Worthen lives out most of her stubborn days wasn't built on a backlot. It was, and still is, a real house in the Druid Hills neighborhood of Atlanta. The production rented it for filming in the summer of 1988. But here's the kicker. The house became a minor tourist destination after the film's release. The price was listed for sale for $2.3 million. It boasts 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, and just enough faded southern charm to make you hear Morgan Freeman's voice echoing from the driveway. Fans still drive by, some even knock, and more than a few real estate listings have dropped the phrase, "as seen in Driving Miss Daisy," like it's a badge of honor. Because in Atlanta, it kinda is. 9. It was made for only $7.5 million and grossed over $140 million for a movie with no explosions, no A-listers. At the time, and not a single superhero in sight, Driving Miss Daisy turned out to be a box office juggernaut. It cost just $7.5 million to make, modest even by 1989 standards. But it tapped into something. Maybe it was the intergenerational story. Maybe it was the holiday release date. Maybe it was the boomers, already nostalgic for their parents' civility. Whatever the cause, audiences showed up. Driving Miss Daisy raked in over $140 million worldwide, an astonishing return on investment. It became the highest-grossing Best Picture winner since Rain Man, and it proved that sometimes quiet sells, especially when it whispers sweet Oscar bait into Academy ears. 10. Hoke and Daisy never touch, on purpose. Go ahead, try to find a moment in the film when Hoke and Miss Daisy touch hands. You won't, not a handshake, not a shoulder pat, not even when he feeds her pie. Director Bruce Beresford made this a deliberate choice. He wanted their intimacy to be emotional, not physical, because the story isn't about a friendship that breaks racial barriers, it's about one that navigates them. The tension remains, the distance lingers, and the lack of physical contact becomes more powerful than any hug could have been. In one of the final scenes, when Hoke feeds Daisy at the nursing home, the camera lingers. She's too frail to hold her own fork. He helps her gently, wordlessly. but still, no touch, just the silent weight of years between them. It's not a love story, it's a reckoning. 11. The film quietly spans 25 years, but you might not notice. At first glance, the movie feels like it takes place in a vague southern yesterday. But watch closely, and you'll realize the story stretches from 1948 to 1973. That's 25 years of American history. Jim Crow, Martin Luther King Jr., the Civil Rights Act, Vietnam, all happening outside the window of Miss Daisy's car. And yet, the film never directly addresses any of it. It's subtle, almost too subtle. We see it in the background. Television news, murmurs, changing cars, shifting hairstyles. Even Hoke's dialect evolves slightly, modernizing as the years go by. But Daisy, she stays fixed in time, which is the point. She's not ignorant of the world, she's resistant to it. The real drama is in her slow, reluctant acknowledgement that times are changing, and that she at last must change with them. 12. Hans Zimmer wrote the score and got his first Oscar nod. Before The Lion King, before Inception, before Dune, there was Driving Miss Daisy. Yes, the man responsible for epic, brain-rattling soundscapes started his Hollywood conquest with a soft, piano-driven score that's as gentle as the film itself. Hans Zimmer composed the music in just a few weeks, creating what he called a little chamber piece with a Jewish folk lilt. It became his first Academy Award nomination. The main theme, with its lilting piano and quiet strings, is deceptively simple. Just like the movie, it doesn't scream emotion, it hums it. And in many ways, it set the tone for Zimmer's entire career. He scores feeling, not just scenes. A surprising beginning for a composer now known for shaking theater walls. But every legend needs a quiet origin story. 13. The real Hoke was even more patient than Freeman's version. Alfred Uhry didn't just base Daisy on his grandmother. He based Hoke on a real man named Will Coleman. And Coleman was more than a driver. He was part of the family. Uhry described him as very gentle, very smart, and incredibly dignified, though his formal education was limited. Coleman worked for the Uhry family for decades. He endured not just casual racism, but also being treated as invisible. And yet, he showed up day after day, year after year, with an unshakable presence. Uhry said he never heard Coleman raise his voice, never saw him lose his temper. If anything, the movie version softened the complexities. Because the real story, like most real stories about race and power, was messier, more painful, and not nearly as tidy as Hollywood tends to make it. 14. The movie was a TV project first until Hollywood got jealous. Here's a strange twist. Driving Miss Daisy was originally developed as a made-for-TV movie. Yep, producers didn't think the story was big enough for theaters. They pitched it to Hallmark Hall of Fame, that bastion of polite Sunday evening dramas. But after the play became a surprise hit off-Broadway and Morgan Freeman's performance started making waves, the tide shifted. Hollywood took notice. Suddenly, what seemed like a cozy little TV drama looked like Oscar material. The budget grew, the cast changed, and Hallmark, they got left behind. Ironically, the very thing that made it feel too small for theaters, its intimacy, is what made it explode on the big screen. The lesson: never underestimate two characters in a car with something to say.